Good evening and welcome to the first episode of the NGP Artifact of the Month. This is the October episode, and tonight we're going to talk about the Mills Plate. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time. We're using brand new equipment, a brand new program, so there's going to be some stumbling blocks, and I'm pretty sure that the audio is a little tinny right now. I'm in a pretty much empty room, so we'll work on that as we progress through. But yeah, stick around. We're going to talk for about probably 15, 20 minutes tonight, and or hopefully as long as my voice holds out. But yeah, tonight we're going to talk about the Mills Belt Plate. We've seen them all on eBay. They're labeled as Spanish American War. We see them on pictures that are, allegedly attributed to the Spanish American War. But is it a Spanish American War item? The answer to that is no, and we're going to look into that a little bit this evening. So we have this image here of this soldier. He looks like the typical Spanish American War soldier. He's got that 1895 forage cap on. He's got that 5-button blouse, the light blue trousers, and there's that Mills belt. There's that Mills belt plate, the H plate. What we do know is the National Guard of Pennsylvania was authorized to wear the 1895 forage caps in 1898. It was approved that winter, in the beginning of 1898, and they were supposed to have them in time for the annual encampment that summer. But as we all know, April, we went to war with Spain. So it looks like, as we're learning now, a lot of the commands had them. So this isn't really a good example. Yeah, we know it's at least in 1898. So it could plausibly be Spanish American War, right? So we're going to keep going through and we'll learn why it's not. So we have this other image. We've got campaign hats, we've got leggings, we've got khaki trousers, the 5-button blouse. There's that Mills belt and plate. Looks like Spanish American War soldier, right? We thought so too. In the beginning, this is one of the images that we used to build the impression, and we didn't realize we were totally wrong. So this image is actually from the 1900s. Excuse me. If you look at the campaign hats, there's keystones on it. There's hat cords. On that keystone, there's a regimental number and a company letter. And we know that that is from 1900. So this is a 1900s image. So we have all these pictures, but, how do we know? Where do we get our information, to determine that this is not a Spanish American War item? So every National Guard has an adjutant general. And there's going to be a report. There's some kind of accountability to the governor, to the taxpayers, about what the National Guard's doing. We're very fortunate that the Pennsylvania Adjutant General's reports, they were digitized by the University of Michigan. You can find them online. You can find them on Hathi Trust, which if you haven't been on Hathi Trust before, do yourself a favor. A lot of good stuff on there. It's free. You can download the documents. You can save pieces of them. You can do snippets. Really good stuff. This is from the second book of the Spanish American War. So it's 1898, 99, and 1900, all in 2 volumes. And if you look here, it shows web belts, web belt plates. What we can see is there was nothing on hand in 1897. Yeah, that whole thing's empty there. I don't know if you can see the mouse on here. I'll find out, I guess, when I get to see the copy here. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments and we'll answer them as soon as we're able to. This next column, we see that there's over 14,000 of each of belts and plates. The problem is it says receipt from all sources 1898, 1899, 1900. Unfortunately, they didn't distill it down enough so we can see, what was bought when and where. And when you look at some of the images of the NGP, you're going to see the belts. You'll probably see them with the C clip on them, and you'll see them with the cast US plate. But you don't see them with the NGP on them. But you do see the guys wearing them. So where did they get those from? And we'll cover that in another episode. But long story short, those came from Uncle Sam when they were mobilizing and they had to outfit the troops. And then we see in this next column, they issued out about over 11,000 of each. which when you look at the numbers of how many infantry regiments, how many batteries, how many troops of cavalry, that matches up roughly to what the National Guard was looking like. So we're pretty confident this is post-war. But this is just numbers covering 3 years. It's not really distilled down. How do we know? So also in that report, we have the table of equipment. So here's the infantry equipment. Notice we don't see the cartridge box, the receiver box on here. We don't see the 1874 belt. We don't see the belt buckle. What we do see though, cartridge belt web with plate, $1.30. So it costs $1.30. It definitely doesn't now, but that's what it cost back then. Over on the cavalry side, we see the belt was $1, the plate was 30 cents, and the entire thing was $1.91. If you look at the top there, saber attachment complete was 61 cents. So that's how you got the $1.91. Excuse me. And one thing with Pennsylvania is the mounted troops all use the same stuff. Cavalry and artillery. So these expenditures for the mounted items, were for both arms there. So we see in 1899, we know how much they're buying the stuff for. This is the replacement cost, but it doesn't really tell us much. We need something more concrete. So with everything that's bought, there's accountability. Every state has, a treasurer or an auditor general, somebody who spends the money and somebody who balances the books. So we're fortunate that the Pennsylvania Treasury reports are online as well. So between 1899 and 1900, when they reorganized the National Guard after the war, so after the War of Spain, they brought everybody home. They demobilized. All the extra companies that were formed just for the war went away. A lot of those men went away, and then they reconstituted the organizations and brought them back up to speed. And they had to re-equip them. So when they did that, they spent $98,000 to do that whole thing over a span of 2 years. That doesn't tell us much, though. It just says they spent $98,000. So when we get into the detailed section of the treasurer's report, we see in January of '99 that Thomas C. Orndorff, he sold the state belts and plates for $5,400. So we know in January they bought a whole bunch of these. And then we see again in August, it's $5,700. So they bought more. So who was Thomas C. Orndorff? And how's the state purchasing from him? So here's the actual factory. It still stands today. I'm probably going to butcher this because I'm not from New England. Worcester, Mass. If I got that wrong, correct me. But he was a government contractor, and he was the sole producer of Anson Mills woven cartridge belt. Anson Mills was a colonel in the U.S. Army, and Thomas Orndorff happened to be his brother-in-law. So Orndorff ran the plant. Mills had the patent, and they started working out of this factory in the 1880s. And at the bottom of that ad, you see adopted by the U.S. Army, Navy, and National Guard. So all of the NGP plates, at least the original ones, and then the belts came from this factory at 51 Union Street. So that's pretty much the short answer of how we got the NGP plates and what time frame they're from. And it's the information's out there. And for those of who do living history and reenacting, in the old days, you could say, hey, I'm going to be a generic this or a generic that, but you really can't. Each unit has different stuff. They got things at different times, and the information's out there now. And I like to use the analogy that you can sit at a bar with this little supercomputer in your hand right here. And while you're drinking your beer, you can look at stuff at the Library of Congress or the U.S. Archives or some other archival place. You can look at items that are in private collections all over the nation and the world, just on a cell phone. Where years ago, you'd actually have to travel out to somebody's house to look at stuff or to another museum. So we live in a great world with a lot of good information. So definitely use that information, while you're doing your research and, building your impression and stuff. So reference material that we used for this one is the 4570 Springfield book. If you don't have it, it's an excellent book. It'll tell you more than you probably ever thought you'd want to know about trapdoor Springfield. Not just the rifle, but the equipment, all the ancillary stuff. It even covers the belts. And I'll switch cameras here. I'll show you one of the things that it tells you about. So on the back of this belt, you can see the patent information. And if you get that book, it'll tell you the exact layout of this. So you'll know if the belt's a reproduction or if it's an original. So that's something to look for. They did a lot of repros of these over the years and plenty of other states. So if you portray some other state, like Massachusetts, or I've seen them for Virginia, I think Tennessee even, if you find one at a show, if you know what info you have there, you can tell if you have original or a reproduction. And the price is definitely different. So it's good to know. So we highly recommend that book. This is another book that has some really great information. It's from the late Douglas McChristian. It's a 2-volume set. It's $50 on Amazon. Highly recommend it. It covers a lot of the earlier stuff. It's kind of like a cavalry book, but it fits us pretty well in the NGP because the National Guard of Pennsylvania used a lot of outdated equipment up through the Spanish-American War and even after that. Of course, our Adjutant General's report we pulled from Hathi Trust, and then our Treasurer's report. So that's what we like to do for research. Some of our favorite materials, and every one of these episodes that we do, we'll post our references as well. So if you want to double check them, or you want to do some research on your own. So that's pretty much it for this one. Since everybody's here, we'll add our next. Sorry, first time. Give you a preview of the next show. We have our next one's coming up Thanksgiving at 7:30 p.m. Why Thanksgiving? It's a holiday. We actually have something pretty special to show. It won't be the actual artifact, but we have the pictures of it. So after you get your Thanksgiving meal and all that, you're relaxing, tune in and check that out. And as soon as you're done with us, you can get back to spending time with the family and watching some football. But we'll let you get a preview of the upcoming clip, and you can kind of get an idea of what we're talking about for November. So thanks for joining us.